If you're playing Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown, you've already realized a somewhat cruel truth. It's not a lack of will that takes you down, it's the lack of the right upgrade at the right time. Because you can spend resources beautifully and end up with an okay crew that falls apart when the game starts to get real chaotic, combat events that drain your supplies, and that constant feeling that there's always a crisis on board. And that's exactly why in today's video, I've set aside 10 crew upgrades that are very much worth it. This isn't a list of what looks cool in the menu, it's what actually changes your run. It improves consistency, saves time, reduces risk, and keeps you in control when the unknown decides to charge a high price. Let's get straight to the point because some of these upgrades seem small until the moment they literally save the Voyager. This crew upgrade that I truly believe pays interest from the start is simple. 2 science labs at the initial level as early as possible. They generate science points passively, so even when you're putting out fires on the ship, repairing broken rooms, and making tense event decisions, research keeps ticking away every cycle and the tech tree starts moving faster. The reason I push this so hard is that in the beginning, everything competes for your time and resources, and science becomes that invisible engine that makes everything else less painful. Some beginner guides put it bluntly, building 2 science rooms right at the start accelerates unlocking technologies because you begin accumulating these points as soon as possible, and this head start becomes a cascading advantage, more upgrades, more options, more stability. In practice, I like this upgrade because it removes the feeling of always playing catch up. Even the community comments that in the early phase, going beyond 2 labs is usually overkill, but having an extra one helps a lot. And the main point is exactly that. You want to hit that constant research rhythm early without cluttering your ship layout with things you'll regret later. 2 labs now doesn't mean being married to them forever. As you evolve and improve lab versions and levels, you can make adjustments and even replace one of them if space gets tight or if your priorities shift. Because the real value was in the initial science boost accelerating your tech tree. The large hydroponics bay is one of those upgrades where I take it and immediately feel the Voyager breathe differently because it cuts out one of the biggest sources of stress in the early and mid-game, food becoming a constant concern in every decision. In community discussions, many people mentioned that one large hydroponics setup covers most of the food demand, which gives you real breathing room to plan the rest without constantly putting out fires in your inventory. The way I see it is simple. When you become more self-sufficient in food, you stop making bad decisions just to survive the next cycle. And this fits with the recurring advice to prioritize food production early, because it even helps with the overall vibe of the ship. Crew morale and stability end up following suit. Now, the detail that turns this upgrade from good to insane is assigning the right crew members. Put people with high science stats there, and you'll feel the production truly kick into gear. The game pushes you toward this kind of synergy all the time, building teams and stations based on individual talent. So it makes sense to treat hydroponics as a scientific project, not just a lettuce patch in space. And the best part is that this becomes a solid foundation for your entire progression pace. With more stable food, you can dedicate energy and attention to repairs, research, and expansion without that fear of, if I mess up this upgrade, the crew will collapse. The biolab is the type of upgrade that, when I first look at it, seems like it can wait. After all, you're worried about food, fuel, crew morale, and then along comes a biological lab asking for resources. But I'm telling you, ignoring this guy early is a mistake you'll feel down the road when Voyager starts needing more advanced technology and repairs begin to weigh more than you expected. Bioneural gel packs are the computational heart of the ship in the series. And in the game, they maintain that weight. In the show, Voyager literally depended on these packs for systems to function in an integrated and fast way, and any damage to them was treated as a serious crisis. So when the game tells you they are vital for advanced technologies and repairs, it's not descriptive fluff, it's total fidelity to what that ship represents. The point that convinces me most to invest early here is the word produce. You don't want to be in an emergency trying to manufacture gel packs in the middle of a crisis, because by then you've already missed the timing. When you set up the biolab in advance, you accumulate stock gradually, and when the need arises, you're already prepared. which completely changes how you react to game events. And there's a strange good satisfaction in keeping this lab running while Voyager advances through the Delta Quadrant. It gives a sense that you're truly looking after the ship as a whole, not just firefighting. It's an upgrade that doesn't shine in the first few minutes, but silently keeps your entire progression standing. This is exactly the kind of decision that separates a smooth campaign from one that will keep you up at night. If there's one crew upgrade I treat as a real priority, it's hull reinforcement. It sits there in the combat tab, looking a bit unglamorous, but it's the kind of research that doesn't just make you stronger on paper, it keeps you alive when the game decides to truly test you with an ambush. The reason is simple. The game loves to put you in fights where you think you're in control, until the moment the hull starts melting and you realize shields aren't an eternal guarantee. In various guides, the recommendation is very direct. After sorting out engine upgrades, it's worth focusing heavily on hull reinforcement, because without it, space battles start becoming a game of Russian roulette. One torpedo hit, and it's over. And the detail many people miss is that it's not just one upgrade. There are 5 levels of hull reinforcement to research in the tree within the combat tab. I like this because it gives a sense of concrete progression. Each tier is that extra step that changes your posture from avoid fights at all costs to, okay, I can tank some damage and still have a plan B. In practice, this upgrade is the difference between surviving long enough to react, repositioning rotating shields using an ability at the right time, and simply watching the Voyager turn into scrap before you can execute any strategy. I always think of it as insurance against the worst case scenario. When the game catches you off guard, the reinforced hull buys you seconds. And in these games, seconds are what separate an epic story from a dry game over. The Vidian surgical device is that upgrade that, the first time I saw it, already gave off the vibe of, this is going to save a campaign. It's not the flashy type of technology that looks absurd in terms of damage or defense, but that's exactly why I find it so valuable. When a game offers you a tool to mitigate mission failures, I pay attention immediately because that usually means less of a domino effect, fewer accumulated disasters, and much more control over the run. And the fact that it's unlocked in the side mission phage in Sector 2 makes it even more interesting. I really like it when a strong upgrade is tied to optional content because it rewards those who explore and don't play on autopilot. This is exactly the kind of reward that makes you feel that going off the main path was worth it, not just for loot, but because you found a technology that changes how you manage Voyager's problems. The coolest thing here is the concept. Being a Vidian device, it already carries that slightly uncomfortable, slightly fascinating weight that fits Star Trek Voyager perfectly. And that gives the upgrade personality, because it doesn't feel like just another generic piece of the research tree. It feels like a makeshift, somewhat desperate solution, the kind that makes total sense when the ship is far from home and needs to use everything it finds to keep going. To me, this is one of the most useful upgrades, precisely because it reduces the impact of moments when the campaign starts to spiral out of control. Instead of every mistake turning into a bigger crisis, you get a margin to breathe, correct course, and keep moving forward. And in a game like Across the Unknown, that's worth gold, because surviving isn't just about winning battles. Sometimes it's about preventing a bad mission from ruining the next 5. To me, regenerative fusion technology looks like the kind of upgrade many people underestimate because it doesn't seem explosive at first glance, but it makes an absurd difference in the campaign when things start to get tight. From what has appeared in game materials and guides, Across the Unknown puts a lot of weight on survival, repairs, and intelligent ship management. So a healing and support feature fits perfectly among the most valuable upgrades. And honestly, I really like this kind of improvement because it's not just there to save you, it gives you stability. The fact that it's unlocked in jet roll in Sector 3 already makes this upgrade feel special because it's not just clicking a button in the research tree and you're done. There's that feeling of being rewarded for attention and timing, especially with the condition of completing the mission before phases. I love it when the game sets these kinds of windows because it makes you feel like your decisions actually matter and you're not just clearing a mission checklist. Personally, I see this upgrade as an elegant safety net. It's not the kind of tech that's going to steal the show like a new weapon or an absurd damage boost, but it's exactly the kind of thing that keeps your crew functional when the situation goes south. In a long campaign, this kind of support is worth more than it seems, because sometimes winning isn't about destroying the enemy quickly. It's about being able to keep operating after the fight ends. And there's another detail I find very strong. This upgrade conveys a very Voyager sense of adaptation on the edge. You're far from home, improvising with what you find, trying to turn technology into practical survival, and regenerative fusion fits that identity perfectly. If I were setting a priority order based on consistency, this would be exactly the kind of upgrade I'd make sure to secure at the right time, because losing a tech like this due to the wrong mission order seems like the kind of regret that sticks with you for hours. The deuterium efficiency upgrade is the type of improvement that doesn't look spectacular in the menu, but changes the entire campaign once you feel the effect in practice. I really like this kind of upgrade because it doesn't try to impress with flashy numbers, it simply makes the ship more efficient. And when a game puts you far from home, any improvement that makes each fuel cycle last longer starts to feel essential. The best side of it for me is that it gives you back your freedom. Instead of exploring each sector with that anxiety of always being a few steps away from running out of fuel, you start to play with more calm, more curiosity, and even more courage. This completely changes the experience because the map stops being a constant threat and becomes a space that truly invites you to discover what's hidden. I also think this upgrade is very strong because it matches Voyager's own identity. It's not about brute force, but about making better use of limited resources, making smarter decisions, and continuing to move forward even in hostile territory. This type of research gives me the strong feeling of a crew that learned to survive the hard way and now knows how to extract the maximum from every opportunity. This is an upgrade I would prioritize without a second thought, precisely because it improves everything around it. You explore more, risk more, manage better, and feel less pressure with every move. To me, that's its true value. It's not just saving deuterium, it's letting the campaign breathe better. The hero room system is one of those moments where the game truly makes the crew stop being just background scenery and turn into a central piece of your strategy. Instead of playing with generic characters, you start to see the ship as a collection of departments that only function at their peak when the right people are in the right place. And that totally changes how you look at every upgrade and every mission. When you put Belén Torres in engineering, for example, that feeling of the warp core is about to explode fades a bit. Accelerating the core's auto repair brings huge control over emergencies, and that's exactly the kind of comfort you need in a game where one failure can be costly. To me, it's one of the first assignments worth checking out, because keeping the ship running is never overkill, and she is the best example of the engineer who holds everything together. Meanwhile, Neelix in the mess hall brings an effect that at first seems small but grows over time. The constant morale bonus isn't flashy in combat, but in practice, it reduces the risk of internal problems, bad decisions, and events that sprout when the crew is tired. I really like this idea because it shows that team well-being isn't just lore, it's a mechanic, and a very impactful one. Neelix there becomes much more than a cook. He becomes the emotional support of the campaign. And when you put a hero in the transporter room, you start to feel like the ship and the away teams are truly connected. Buffing all surface groups changes what you feel comfortable trying on each planet, and that greatly enriches the exploration experience. For me, this is the key for anyone who wants to explore more sectors, accept risky missions, and truly use the Delta Quadrant as a world to be discovered, not just as an obstacle. Emergency quarters are that upgrade I learned to respect the hard way. While I was obsessed with combat and exploration, the inside of the ship was becoming a powder keg. When you can't manage to accommodate everyone properly, the feeling is that the campaign starts to unravel for silly reasons, and that's the worst kind of defeat. The point here isn't comfort for luxury's sake, it's stability. Building rooms for the entire crew prevents those drastic drops in morale and that fatigue that keeps accumulating until, before you know it, it's affecting everything, decisions, efficiency, and even how safe you feel risking a longer route. I like this upgrade because it acts as a buffer for the unexpected. Beginner guides for the game treat crew and resource management as a central part of survival, and housing fits exactly into that logic of preventing a crisis before it starts. I view emergency quarters as an investment that doesn't show up in a damage number, but shows up in your consistency. You stop playing on the edge of crew stress and start playing with a margin, and that margin is what lets you explore more and fail less without the campaign falling apart. The way I see the large cargo bay is like a pact. You gain incredible efficiency for stocking critical resources, but you take the real risk that if it gets damaged, the blow will be bigger than with a smaller bay. This contrast is exactly what makes the upgrade interesting, because it forces you to think like a captain, not a loot collector. In practice, its value appears when you start operating with real emergency reserves. In a game that pushes you toward resource management and sector-by-sector survival, having extra capacity changes your planning. You explore more, handle bad sequences of events better, and avoid being held hostage by the thought of, I need to go back now or I'll die. However, I don't use this bay as space for everything, but as a priority compartment. What is indispensable goes there, and the rest I treat as disposable cargo, precisely because I play assuming that sooner or later the universe will try to punish me. This makes me protect the ship more when I'm full, avoid unnecessary fights, and choose routes with less chance of taking free damage. The large cargo bay is an upgrade that doesn't shine in combat, but shines in what actually sustains a long campaign: consistency. It gives you the breath to make better decisions because you're not always on the verge of a logistical collapse. And when you realize you survived a bad streak just because you had stock put away, this upgrade becomes one of those you never neglect again.